listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
And welcome to another edition of West Coast Bias, presented by our friends at Baseball Isn't Boring. This whole thing is powered by our friends at Wasabi. Go check them out. Cloud solutions, all that good stuff that you need when you need to save things like I save audio files. So use our friends Wasabi. I'm joined by a friend, a guy that is one of the voices of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You hear him often on 570, does some TV as well. The incomparable Tim Neverett. Timmy, how are you, my guy?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Always good to see you.
Always good to see you too. So let's just get right into it. The season started. It's weird, but the season started. It's the middle of May. We're heading towards the end of May. Whatever. Here we are. The Dodgers did the opening deal in Tokyo, the Tokyo series against the Chicago Cubbies, and it did not pay off for the Cubbies. They got swept by the Dodgers. But I'm gonna bury the lead here and not talk about Ohtani. Let's just talk about the Dodgers. We knew this team on paper was going to be really good. The bullpen is preposterous. I mean, there's just no other word that you can use. We had the debut of Roki Sasaki in Japan, another big deal. We'll talk about that in a moment. Yoshinobu Yamamoto got the nod opening day, quote unquote, for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But all around, they had a little bit of adversity, but this is kind of what you expected with the Dodgers. Am I crazy to just kind of look at it that way, or am I reading too much into everything?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we're looking at the same thing here, and they did that. They swept the Cubs without Mookie Betts, without Freddie Freeman. Next man up, right? Next man up philosophy. Kike Hernandez stepped right in there and did a great job, and Tommy Edman, great job at second base. And I mean, just go up and down the lineup, and everybody did something. But the pitching is that's going to win you games, and starting pitching is one thing. But the bullpen is another. And as I'm walking around Camelback Ranch and inside the clubhouse, and I'm looking at these relievers and I'm going to talk to them and realizing that we still don't have Evan Phillips and we still don't have Michael Kopech. We still have other pitchers waiting in the wings that are on their way back. There's young guys like Kyle Hurt who's hurt, who's on his way back. River Ryan, I saw him in uniform. There's another guy, Emmett Sheehan. He's on his way back. They still haven't had Clayton Kershaw, and he's due back. So
Brusdar Graterol also hurt.
Brusdar Graterol, another guy. He's out for a bit, but he's on the 60-day right now. So you got all these guys that they still have waiting in the wings. You had Tanner Scott, whose numbers last year were ungodly. When you look at Kirby Yates, he was the Texas Rangers' best pitcher by far, better than any starter, better than any reliever. I mean, they couldn't hit him. He had an ERA of like 170. Same thing for Scott. I think batting average against was like 134. Alex Vesia is probably the least talked about, but most effective reliever they've got. I mean, just look at his ERA last year. He had a career year, and then he picks up the save in Game 2 in Japan. So there's just a lot of weapons that they have pitching-wise. Offensively, yeah, we know what they can do. They have the best player on the planet. And they've got two other guys who are also really, really good, who are going to be in the lineup 1, 2, 3. It's, if I'm saying, hey, get ready for a 150-win season, I can't say that because it's baseball. You're going to lose games. Things happen. But should they win 100 games? I'd be surprised if they didn't, to be honest.
Well, and you talk about the off. I mean, this could end up being a prolific offense. I mean, I'm not even just saying that as a Dodgers apologist. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, when you look at the roster, you have Teoscar Hernandez, who is doing what he does, right? You have Michael Conforto, who had a very productive spring, kind of showed you why the Dodgers were willing to take a waiver on him. You mentioned the big three. Max Muncy is still going to, I mean, you know what you're going to get out of Max Muncy as long as he's healthy. And then Miggy Rowe. There's still dudes that are, I mean, they're not going to give you the bombs. They're not going to give you triples. They're going to give you doubles. They're going to be consistent. They're going to manufacture runs, which is something that I think up until last year, you heard a lot of Dodger fans kind of like, hey, they're not manufacturing. They're not. Well, now you have a roster of dudes that are going to manufacture runs. And by the way, they're starting the lineup with Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts. As a baseball nerd, that's preposterous.
Yeah, it's 27 Yankees preposterous, right? And
yeah,
and you hope that you have a fully healthy Freddie. Freddie said he could have played in game 2. He wants to play in the Freeway Series, and then of course he'll be ready for the opener against the Tigers. Mookie, if he doesn't get hit on the hand by a pitch last year and miss almost 2 months, it's a different season for him because he was playing at a possible MVP clip at that point in time. Will he do that again? Again, playing shortstop. He wants to win a Gold Glove at shortstop worse than anything. So, he wants to win another World Championship worse than anything. Winning a Gold Glove at shortstop would be a nice bonus. And so the lineup itself is really good. That's just an understatement and a half. It's really, really good. It's probably the best one I've seen. I thought the best lineup I ever saw with one particular team before this might have been like the 2018 Red Sox or even the 2016 ones with David Ortiz in his last year, still gets 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. You had Mookie Betts with 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. You had Hanley Ramirez, 30 home runs, 100 RBI. You had 3 guys going 30 and 100 in that same lineup. And they won the division and then were bounced out of the playoffs early. In 18, you added J.D. Martinez to that lineup, and it was really, really something special. But none of those compare to what we see here. I mean, we got Mr. 50-50 leading off. Is he going to have another 50 stolen base season? I doubt it, because when he starts pitching, that's going to affect the number of times he gets on base. But in the meantime, he's still going to hit 40 bombs. The one that he hit in game 2, I found out 2 days later why I didn't see it, not only because I wasn't in the stadium, but I didn't see it hit the ceiling. Nobody saw it hit the ceiling. I've just found out today that his home run hit the ceiling at the Tokyo Dome, and that's why it came down at a weird angle.
The second time he's done that, which is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, he did it when he was with the Nippon Ham Fighters before, and nobody does that. Nobody does that, but he can because he's a superhero.
Well, and let me ask you this: so as you've been around them this spring, you've been around Camelback and whatnot. As far as the guys that are hurt, is there anything that you've kind of noticed? Obviously, they're still being built up to come back, and they're working their way through the injuries. In most instances, when you see that in the spring, you see guys that are kind of trying to hurry to get back because they're afraid that their spot's going to get taken, something to that effect. For the most part, you kind of have an idea of how this roster is going to shake up, right? Did you see any sense of urgency in any of those guys, or was it one of those like, hey, I'm just going to cruise and just get myself right?
I think their attitude is, this is about October. It's not about April. And for all of them, it's not about me. And that's the attitude they've got. I was fascinated a little bit early in camp, before they started playing games, being in the clubhouse and listening to guys just say, winning the World Series was great, but that's last year. Our focus is to do it again. And they were ultra focused. A lot of times there's a hangover. Teams have hangovers, right? They win a world title. They come into camp, beating their chest like we're the greatest. And they cruise a little bit. And we've seen it, recently. I think it was the Texas Rangers. They didn't even make the playoffs after they won the World Series.
Yeah.
They're not the only ones. That's happened quite a few times. But this Dodger team had a totally different attitude in the way that they were like, nope, that was great. That was such a good run. We're going to have an even better run now. We're going to defend it. And that's their main mission. So it's not about them. It's about what the team has talked to everybody about. They do a great job of communicating with guys, saying, look, we don't need you ready by April 1st. Okay? You're a big contributor to this team. You're going to help us win another world title. But if you're ready by May 1st or June 1st, let's get it right. Let's get you 100% so that in September, October, we're not worried about, shoulder discomfort or forearm discomfort or elbow inflammation or all the same things you hear about pitchers and injuries. They want guys to be ready when they're ready. That's why Ohtani, I've been watching Ohtani throw since last summer, right? And you wonder, okay, why can't he throw in a game right now? We watched him on the early video that we had before the game even started the other day. He threw both days. He had a catcher. He was doing it in the outfield, basically just what they call throwing on flat ground, what us mere mortals call playing catch. So, he was doing that. And he's going to get back into pitching mode, but probably not till the month of May. And when he's ready, when he feels he's 100% ready, but he wants to make sure the team gets off to a really good start. So he's focused on the hitting side of things right now.
I think that's super interesting because like I said, I think culturally, at least in this space, especially just because the rosters, get slimmed down, so on and so forth, a lot of dudes are just rushing and these guys are like, no, I'm going to do it right. And it's evident too, like in a Clayton Kershaw, like Kershaw wasn't going to play in the series. I mean, he jokingly said on what they posted on Dodger socials that he was kind of mooching off the Dodgers a little bit, taking this trip, taking the family and the whole thing. But it's,
well, he went over on his own.
Yeah. And so
he wasn't even on the team flight. Yeah.
And so he, he's there and he's in the clubhouse and all of that, but you can definitely tell that for him, it's about getting right, because in years past, all the weight of that kind of fell on Clayton, right? It was expected that Kershaw needed to be ready to go. And I mean, that's what happens when you're the horse, right? That's what happens when you're the guy. And I think for the first time in a really long time, Clayton can just be like, oh, okay, I don't need to be healthy right now. Cool. We have 3 other dudes that we can just throw out there. Cool. Let me know when it's my time and I'll be ready. And I feel like that's kind of what sets this team apart from other iterations of the Dodgers. Cause let's be honest, that team in 2017 was a really good Dodgers team. They were stacked top to bottom. We all know what happened. We can litigate it all we want, but it is what it is. But really since then, since 20 even, right? And 20 is an outlier. I think it's garbage that people call it a Mickey Mouse championship. In my opinion, that's the hardest one that they've won just because of all the
Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine too. And I lived through it. I lived to tell the tale. And it was not easy. That short season was harder than any regular long season I've ever been through. It just from my standpoint, never mind what the players were going through.
Yeah.
And we weren't even on the traveling squad. And it was very difficult for us to do our jobs, but it was a tough time. I mean, I gave everybody hats off for being able to put people in positions to do their jobs. But at the same time, that was a very, very difficult season. All the things you had to do just to be able to get in the gates to go to work. I mean, it was brutal. And that next year, it was a big relief when we didn't have to go through all those protocols anymore. We had to for a while.
Right.
In 21, but like 22, I will say that was when I was like, back to normal.
Back to normal, as normal as we can get.
As normal as it can get now.
Yeah.
So.
No, and then you look at last year, right? They I mean, you've heard multiple guys say it. That they felt that the best team they faced were the Padres, and up until they got to the World Series, and so they've had their fair share of adversity, but they're all the team is bought in, right? You can't deny that these guys are bought into what it is. And I think to a certain degree, they're kind of taking the villain thing, if you will. They're taking it to heart in a good way. And what I mean by that is when you're that good, when you're that, when you have all these expectations, you still have to have something to fight for, right? And I think to a certain degree, them having that target on their back is giving them that motivation, if you will. Am I wrong in kind of making that conclusion?
I think Mookie made a comment last year. He said, we've got a bullseye on our back everywhere we go. And they understand that. So they know they're getting everybody's best shot every night. You're not going to win every game. That's why you play 162. It's baseball. A million different things can happen, which can lead to losses and which can lead to wins. But the good teams find ways to win and the bad teams find ways to lose. But you're right. I mean, they do expect everybody's best shot every night. And you might have a guy who might be considered a mediocre pitcher pitching against him. He's going to come out there that night and kind of like if you're an A-ball pitcher and you got a guy down on rehab from the big leagues, and you're going to give it everything you have to prove yourself against them. And that's the same mentality I think a lot of a lot of opposing pitchers and players have when the Dodgers come into town, and they want to give it their absolute best shot. So, the Padres did that time and time again. and that series was great. Glad the way it worked out in the end. It wasn't looking so good for a little while, but
it was a little dicey.
Yeah, but I'm glad it worked out that way. But at the same time, I think the Padres gave them their best shot, and then for whatever reason, they stopped scoring runs, and the Dodgers didn't, and that was the difference.
So let me ask you, as we look around kind of the NL West, this was going to also kind of double up as our NL West preview. I mean, listen, we all know that the favorites are the Dodgers. I mean, we don't have to really litigate it. But who in the division do you think is going to give kind of their best shot, if you will, to try to make it as tough as possible for the Dodgers going into this year?
Well, I think number one would be Arizona. I think the Diamondbacks have tried to do everything possible. I think bringing in Corbin Burns is going to be a big deal. They've had some pretty good pitching anyway. They've got some good young players. They've got a pretty good ball club. They do miss their first baseman now, though, who is a Dodger. He was a pest to the Dodgers. I'm so glad he's gone. But especially to Clayton Kershaw, he just owned him for some reason. Everybody owns somebody, right? In baseball, you own a pitcher for reasons you can't explain, or a hitter, or you own a hitter as a pitcher for reasons you can't explain. It's just that way. But that's kind of how it worked for Christian Walker. But I do like Arizona. I think that the Giants should be better. I don't know if they're going to be. They might be just the same as they were last year. The Padres are going to be in there. The Rockies, and believe me, I love the Rockies. I love I lived in Denver, worked in Denver, did stuff with them in the past. And we had our last exhibition game. We had a talking stick with them in Scottsdale. They rolled out what could be a opening day lineup. And I'm just looking at it going, this is the definition of insanity. Now, no disrespect to the ball players, okay? But you're rolling out the same lineup you've had for the last 3 years, and you've had 200 lost seasons in a row. You set a franchise record for losses in the previous year. Why would you go with the same thing? But that's what they do. And unfortunately, they're probably in line for another rough season in the National League West. I mean, they're probably happy with the new schedule, that they don't have to play the Dodgers as many times as we would have to in the past, and maybe the same with Arizona. So they got to make those divisional games count. The only difference that they've got now is there's no Charlie Blackmon. And Charlie Blackmon, on certain days, he came up with big hits against the Dodgers, walk-off home runs, big doubles at the end of games. And so he's retired and he's fishing up in the mountains, and I hope he's happy because he was a great player to watch. But I'm still kind of surprised at the Rockies for not trying to do more to improve their ball club. After 2 straight 100 lost seasons, they run out the same guys.
And it's a damn shame too, because Denver is a great sports city. I love going there for baseball games in the summer. It's great, and it's a damn shame because that fan base does, like, when they're winning, they're into it.
They will show, and it's even as bad as they've been wins and loss wise, they're still like in the middle of that, like the upper part of attendance in Major League Baseball. I think they're like 8th or 9th in attendance in Major League Baseball because it's such a great place to go, especially in the summer. Downtown's great. Lower downtown section of Denver is great. They have a great player development facility in Arizona, probably the best. I think what they have and what the Dodgers have are 1 and 1A. And they've got all kinds of things going for them, except for wins and losses. They have cornered the market in the losses department, but they just can't figure out how to win a lot of those games. And, I get tired of hearing people want to blame it on the ballpark and the altitude and so on and so forth. The other team has to play in those conditions too. So
it's like D-Will once said, the other team drives a Mercedes too, right? So it's the same difference.
They also practice too. They both teams take batting practice. So it's an even field, even with the humidor and everything else at Coors Field. But it's just a wonderful place, and I really hope that they will sometime soon figure it out and get back in playoff contention, because it's better when the Rockies are better, I think.
I agree, and I will say I agree with you on the D-backs. The Snakes have gone out and they got themselves in what I think may end up being a top 5 rotation in Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez and Brandon Paft, right? I mean, that's a solid. I mean, I'm a huge Zach Gallen fan. That dude is a quiet kind of assassin, if you will, because obviously the Dodgers get all of the attention, but those dudes are dudes.
Yeah, Gallen's good. Gallen's really good. I don't think he gets enough credit nationally. I don't. I think the national media tends to overlook Arizona.
Yeah,
a lot. Merrill Kelly's really good, but when Zach Gallen pitches, that guy is not afraid. He gets on the bump, and as they say from Bull Durham, he what is it? He expresses his authority or whatever, or he I forget the line, but he gets up there and he's in charge, and the guy can pitch. He can flat out pitch. Just adding Burns to that lineup, that rotation is going to make him even tougher. It's going to make it deeper, tougher. They've always been able to hit. And I like what Mike Hazen's done there. I think Mike's one of the good minds in baseball. I worked with Mike briefly in Boston when he was there on the Dave Dombrowski. And when he left to get that job and he took Torey Lovullo with him, I thought, you know what, they're going to make a good team, and they've been a great team there. So they've done a good job, and I think we're going to have some battles with the Diamondbacks this year.
Well, and speaking of kind of underappreciated, if you will, nationally, Torey Lovullo fits that. I mean, that's a dude that, in my opinion, when you look around kind of the league and you have your short list of like the best managers in the game, he's on that list. I mean, he goes out there, his dudes play hard for him. He kind of does the Dave thing where he's a little zenny, if you will, where he, he's hands on, but he's hands off at the same time. But he's got a good mix of it, because the other thing too with this Arizona team, it's a really young team. When you look around the roster, I mean, we all know Corbin Carroll, right? A fully healthy Corbin Carroll, when he's going to get it going, got the big extension, the whole 9 yards. I mean, that's going to be a superstar for the future potentially, right? But I mean, they've done him and Mike Hayes have done a great job with everything there, to your point.
Yeah, and it's funny with Torey, when he was bench coach in Boston, I remember we had an interleague game in San Francisco. We're sitting in the first base dugout and we're watching the Giants pitchers take BP. This is back when pitchers were hitting. And so Boston had to have their pitchers hit in that series. And so he was asking me some questions because he knew I was in the National League before that for a long time with the Pirates. And he said, is this typical? I mean, how often do you do this? And so we were just talking about it because he'd always been in the American League his whole career.
Right.
So, he goes to the National League. He figures out the double switch and all that. He knew it anyway. But, I mean, sometimes you need a little help to remind yourself to look way ahead in the lineup in the old National League rules. But when we went full DH, I was thinking about him, thinking, you know what, he's going to thrive in this because this is what he was brought up in. And even though, he didn't make, he never made any egregious mistakes when he had to have his pitchers hitting, it was something that was just a little bit different. But for people who come from American League cities and they've never seen that or weren't familiar with that, I like that. I like the way the baseball was played then. Now it's great too. You get another bat in the lineup, but I didn't mind the old-fashioned way, and I think he's probably relieved that the pitchers don't hit anymore, and I think it's actually helped that organization.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, obviously, listen, they've had their fair share of pitchers that could kind of hit in that organization right over the years, but it's one less chess piece you have to move around every single day to figure out. As we look around the league, the National League, that is, I think the Diamondbacks are one of those teams on kind of that short list that could be a problem for the Dodgers. As you look around, who else do you think is actually a problem for the Dodgers?
They're in the whole league. Well, I mean, the Braves should be good. The Phillies, I think, will be good. The Mets will be good. I mean, thinking about the Central, the Cubs. I think the Cubs should be the best team in the Central. The Pirates should be better. I don't know where the Cardinals are going to fit in now. It's weird saying that because they were so good for so long. Cincinnati should be a little better. The Brewers, they always find a way to get in the conversation one way or another. But in the East, I think the East is going to be really tough. And since the Phillies hired Dave Dombrowski and they've just said, okay, you're the guy, go ahead, let it rip. Everywhere Dave's gone, he's won. Right? He's figured it out. The thing I like about Dave is that he is old school baseball for sure, mixed with new school. But he really gets it, and he knows how to find players and get players and sign players. The people who work for him really understand what he's all about, and that's why I think the Phillies are going to be really tough again this year. I think they could be probably one of the toughest teams in the East. The Mets are going to be good. I mean, they're spending money too, so they hope to be better. The Braves are usually going to be in there in the mix, but I would say that the Phillies might be one of the tougher opponents. Plus, they play them right out of the gate in Philadelphia. It's the first road game of the year.
No, and that's actually when you sit around and kind of look at the landscape of everything. That's I mean, it's not even taking chalk, right? It's one of those where, I mean, they're pesky, right? They play hard. They have a solid rotation, and that's some dude named Bryce Harper. And so I mean, it's one of those where, and in my opinion, that dude, you could even make an argument, is probably underpaid, which is preposterous, but whatever. Them and the Braves are always, I mean, obviously the Braves last year had a down year because of injuries, but if they're healthy, they're a problem. They're a problem for everyone, not just the Dodgers.
They're very good. The way they operate, the personnel they have, they're tough. They're tough to beat, and they're especially tough to beat at their place. I think we had a little luck there last year, a little success, but we also get them pretty early. I think that's our third road trip of the year. So we get to go to Atlanta. I think we have 4. We might have 4 there. I'd have to look. Actually, I can look right here.
Yeah, the East Coast swing right out the gate. I remember I was looking at the schedule and I was like, damn, I send them. Do you go to Tokyo, come home? You go straight to the East Coast?
Yeah, no, we have 3 there. And on that same trip, we have 4 in Arizona. I'm looking at the schedule right here.
The old book.
Yeah, I keep this in the front of my scorebook. But so we have 3 in Philly, 3 in Washington right out of the gate. Cold weather games in Philly and Washington for Los Angeles guys, it's going to be a little tough.
If you're a Californian and you've never experienced the East Coast cold, it's bullshit. There's just no other word for it. It is terrible because you feel it in your bones.
It'll go right through. I grew up in that stuff. I've broadcast games out east in April when I've actually had games in the 20s, temperatures in the 20s at night, and so you're done with the game and it just has gone completely through you, and it takes a lot out of you. But you always live to tell the tale, so it's okay. We'll be all right.
Well, and before I set you loose, Tim Neverett from one of the voices of the Los Angeles Dodgers joins me now. Tim, before I set you loose, I want to ask you, because you're fortunate enough to be around the game. You're going to call a bunch of games. You're going to see them away and home. What's a bold prediction that you're going to have for this Los Angeles Dodgers team in 25?
Bold prediction? I mean, it would be pretty bold, but I would say the low-hanging fruit based on just looking at personnel, but again, they have to play the games. They don't play them on paper. But the low-hanging fruit is to win the division again. And then once you get in the postseason, then it's a tournament now with the expanded playoffs. So it's tougher. I think everybody's hopeful that they can be the first repeat champions in a quarter of a century. And I think that's something that they really have their eyes on and really have their whole mission pointed toward. And, that would be, if you're going to make as bold a prediction, that's about as bold as you can make. But again, I think they'll compete for that, and they'll be there as long as they've got the best player in the world leading off and he's healthy. Who knows what can happen with him? I mean, maybe he goes 50-50 again. It wouldn't shock me.
I'm inquisitive, and forgive me because I don't have it pulled up. As far as I know, there is no repeat 50-50 players in the history of the game, correct?
There's never been one. He's the only one.
Or ever. Even let me go back. Like 40, because there's guys that have done like the 30-30 thing, all that, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But a repeat with whatever that metric was, there isn't anyone in the history of the game that's repeated, correct?
It's really hard to do.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really hard to do. But with this guy, nothing would shock me.
Well, and the reason that I'm emphasizing that is because I feel like Ohtani gets a lot of hate now too. And I get it. He plays for the Dodgers. He plays for the Evil Empire, all that stuff. but it's one of those where, like, I used the analogy not too long ago with a friend of mine talking about baseball. It's soccer, but it's a different analogy, but similar thing. When Messi and Ronaldo were in their primes and playing against each other, and they were just doing the stuff that we can't comprehend against each other, we kind of took it for granted, right? Because everyone was just in the discourse of, well, my guy's better than your guy, and you know, my team is better, so on and so forth. This is it's very possible that we may never see a dude like this again. Like, this is I can't even wrap my head around half of the things that he does.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me, to be honest, if he did go 40-40 this year to follow up 50-50. You know, his teammates say the same types of things. Like, I remember he hit a home run in his second at bat in the exhibition game against the Yomiuri Giants. Will Smith was asked about it after the game. Are you surprised? He goes, no, the only thing I'm surprised at is he didn't do it in his first at bat. So, I mean, that's kind of how his teammates, who are bona fide all-stars, look at him. They look at him like he's incredible. Like, I talked to Max Muncy before they left for Japan, and I said, you ever been? And he goes, no, it'll be my first time. He goes, I can't wait to go with Shohei. He goes, it's going to be like being with the Beatles, with the Rolling Stones, and Led Zeppelin all rolled into one. He goes, we're talking about, we can't believe what it's going to be like over there with this guy. And they weren't let down. They really got the full treatment. And, you know, that's why Kershaw wanted to go. He wanted to go because he wanted to see what it was like to be around Ohtani in Japan at this event. And it didn't let anybody down. It was really, really incredible from what everybody's told me, everything I've read, everything I've seen. And I'll be talking to some of the players this Sunday when they get back, and get some firsthand accounts and get some firsthand stories from the players and how just amazed they are at this guy and his presence and people there and the way they revere him. If he's very popular here in the U.S., it's a fraction of how popular he is in Japan.
And the thing that just blows my mind with him is how he just goes about his business as a whole. Like, it doesn't really affect him one way or the other, right? Like, even like, I want to play poker with him just to see if he ever just breaks, you know, to use a wrestling term, gimmick, because he has one of the best poker faces where he rarely shows you, and even when he does, it's like one of those where it's like, hey, that's a strike, and he knows it's a ball, and he just laughs and does whatever. He doesn't even say anything. He just still goes about it the way he does.
And he's setting a great example for a younger generation of ball players, because not just with his good play, but when he goes to the plate, he tips his cap in respect to the umpire. If it's the first at bat of the day, he looks over in the opposite dugout and tips his cap to the manager and acknowledges the manager. And anytime he fouls a pitch off, he's got his hand back checking on the catcher to see if he's okay. Like, a lot of guys don't do any of that. And I asked Rick Monday the other day, I go, have you ever seen a more respectful player? He goes, never in my life. I've seen a player who respects everybody and the game and everything else around it as much as he does. And I think that sets a great example for younger players where they can learn respect and sportsmanship. It sounds corny, but it's true, from the best player on the planet.
And I lied. This is the last thing I'm going to ask you, and then set you loose. Roki Sasaki made his debut, speaking of the Beatles. It was a short outing. It wasn't anything, but we have an idea of kind of what he's working with. I think he's going to be okay. I wanted to get your reaction to what his debut looked like for the Dodgers.
First inning was really good. It was 11 pitches. He retired the side in order. And he didn't throw a splitter in the first inning. Okay, so it's been taking me a while to get used to it because it's different than other splitters. He holds it way back in his hand, fingers apart. It's like a fork ball. And they're on the skin of the ball, not on the seams, right? So, and he lets it go. He gets fewer revolutions than a regular splitter would. So it's like 500 and something revolutions. So it's sort of like a knuckleball in some ways. Sometimes he puts a little pressure here. Sometimes he puts a little pressure here. And Dave Roberts said it before his starting game too. He said, even Roki has no idea where the ball's going to land when he throws that splitter. What we were noticing was that it kept on fading from the left-handed hitter, fading outside the zone. And he couldn't get that outside corner down. But when he would throw it to a right-handed hitter and he'd throw it, over the middle, he could get it down. He ran into problems with the control of it, and therefore he ended up with 5 walks in 3 innings. So that's something he's going to have to figure out relatively quickly. And the other thing is holding runners is probably going to be a little different here for him. He allowed a couple stolen bases or at least one stolen base anyway. But I think that's one thing he's going to, keep his eye on, and they're going to keep their eye on him with that. But, as long as he has good control, which we know he does, he was amped up. Like the first inning, he's throwing 100, 101. We hadn't seen that all spring. But he's pitching at home in front of a sold-out Tokyo Dome. They say that there were about 25 million people in Japan that watched the game. And Japan's population is a third of what the U.S. is. And we haven't had 25 million for a baseball game since Game 7 in 2017. So it was a pretty big deal for him. So he was pretty amped up. And then he was down around 98, 99. But what he does is when he does pitch, for me personally, he leaves me wanting more. I want to keep seeing him pitch. I thought they'd run him out there for another inning, but I thought that maybe they did the right thing with him, getting him out after 3. He was, having control issues, and just get him out there and let the bullpen go to work, which is what they did, and they did a good job. And I thought Landon Knack was really good out of the bullpen, pitching multiple innings. Vesia was great at the end. So, but as far as Sasaki goes, we're in for a treat, I think, with this guy in the long run.
And to your point, in the long run, right? I mean, we also have to remember how young this kid is, right? I mean, he's
23.
He's coming from Japan, learning a whole new. I mean, the game is similar, but it's a whole different level. And even then, for him to hold his own, like you said, that first inning with all of the things going on, hey, you got to tip the cap where you can, because I mean, there's not a lot of people that could do what he did.
No, everything's new, right? So the transition year is tough. I mean, Yamamoto, who was older and more established, he didn't have the easiest time transition-wise last year, but he still did all right. After he got beaten up by the Padres in the first game, he was 7-1 after that. He was really good, and I thought he was excellent in Game 1. I think he's going to be really good. So I look for Sasaki to have a pretty good year this year for all the goals that they'd like to have him meet. But then next year, watch out. He'll be really something.
I mean, I will say that that's the thing I'm looking forward to this upcoming year, is to see kind of the evolution of Yoshinobu Yamamoto going into what it was last year to now, because they've talked about it with how, you've heard different players say it, that last year was a tough transition, and here's the thing too, right? Yamamoto, it's not a bad problem to just have an Ohtani that you can confide in, right? With the changes of what's going on, but it's still, it's different because Yamamoto is just the starter, right? That's all it is. And that's, in comparison to how they do things in Japan, it's very different, even just from a routine basis. And you go into, kind of doing a full major league schedule, which is a grind in itself, the travel, so on and so forth. It's very different, but I'm excited for sophomore year Yamamoto. I'm still excited for freshman year of Roki, because man, that dude is a dude. That there's no other way to put it.
And there's another guy we haven't talked about. That's Blake Snell.
Correct.
So you got a two-time Cy Young Award winner with a no-hitter under his belt, and he's added to your staff, right? I mean, he eats innings too. He's an innings eater.
And he's had a great spring.
So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does this year. I just, adding him, when I saw the news we added him, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I wanted to see him in a Dodger uniform for years, but I'm glad that he finally is here. He's got a 5-year deal. He's not going anywhere. And he should be a beast in that rotation. He really should be.
No, and I said it, I forgot who I was talking to earlier this year. Might have been Rob Bradford, also Baseball Isn't Boring, where Blake Snell is just a sleeper pickup, kind of. Like when you sit down and look at kind of like all the acquisitions, it was all Roki all the time with the Dodgers this year, but then you quietly forget that they acquired Blake Snell.
I don't know if I'd describe him as a sleeper, because he's like a locomotive coming through the middle of your living room. Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, with all the other things that have gone on, maybe that signing didn't gain the fanfare nationally or internationally that some other things did, but he doesn't care. He's just going to go out and strike people out and get people out, and he's going to enjoy winning, and that's all he wants to do is win, and that's what all these guys want. All they want is to go and win, and that's good when you put a group of guys together that are of that same mindset, and you don't have that me guy, which certain clubhouses have, that are only interested in their numbers and how much service time how long do I get to 10 years of service time, those things. It's like, okay, those things will happen. You just play. You play and you play well, and add it all up later, and it's going to happen. And I think the Dodgers have a lot of players like that are like, look, we just want to win, and then we'll count all the numbers when we're done. Let's just go out and win every night.
That's the incomparable Tim Neverett, who one of the reasons I love Tim, not only as a friend, but as just a personality, is he's very engaging on social media. So Tim, where can the people find you so they can engage with you?
The easiest way is on Twitter or X or whatever you prefer to call it. Just at Tim Neverett. Also on Instagram, the same thing, Facebook. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll answer, sometimes I can't answer certain things, but I will I'll do my best to do it, because I think engaging with people who are following the sport is important. It's important that they feel like they can reach out sometimes, ask a question, and get the best answer that I probably could give at that point in time. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear, but sometimes it's not a good answer. Like we had guys asking me, people were asking me, are you in Japan or in California? And I would just answer, which do you think? Just, take a guess. It's 50-50. You got to have a chance to be right here. So, have fun with people like that sometimes too. But I think it's another way to communicate. And I like doing that. So.
No, we'll go follow him. He's a great follow. I follow him. And Timmy, we got to do this again in season once the a call back to what you said a second ago. Once the locomotive of the Dodgers kind of gets going, we'll have to have you back on, and we'll debrief and kind of see where stuff's at.
Yeah, it's fun to always at the beginning of the year to kind of think about what could be and what's going to happen maybe, and then seeing something play out that's either similar. And I've been in situations where you have high hopes and then something totally different plays out. But I've been fortunate that I've been able to see a lot over the years, and still, to me, I've never seen anything like Ohtani. Never. This guy he's on a whole other level. And when Major League All-Stars are saying the same thing, how good that guy has to be. And he's humble in a way. I've been with him in private, like on the team bus and, wherever, right? Talk to him here and there, out of earshot of anybody. And he's just like a regular dude, when you get him in that certain circumstance. But when there's people around, he knows he has to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
So I leave him alone, when he's in the clubhouse or when he's out doing his press things or when he's working on the field or whatever. But, on the spare moments I've had to talk to him briefly here and there, he's been nothing but. I had a great conversation with him about his dog, which is his favorite subject, by the way.
Decoy.
So, yeah, we were talking. It was in Arizona last year. We walked off the bus at the same time, and I said, "How'd you train your dog? What trick did you do to train your dog to throw out the first pitch the way that he did?" And he said, "Oh, we went to the park and practiced. I took him. He couldn't do it in his yard. He took him to Dodger Stadium. This is the way he does things, right? You're not going to train your dog in the backyard. You're going to take him to Dodger Stadium and do it there," which is what he did. And it was awesome. It was really good. And when I see videos and pictures and I see it, at Dodger Stadium too, people not only dressing like him, but they dress like his dog. They come in dog costumes. This is how popular this dog is. He's a really, really special person and one of a kind.
No, and man, I mean, we could one day when we all kind of relitigate everything that Ohtani is, It's going to be insane. But for now, I'm going to try my best to enjoy it because I don't think we're going to see anything like this. And I know that that's kind of cliche because you say that a lot, when you said that about like the Mickey Mantles and the Joe DiMaggios and as you kind of go down the history of baseball.
Yeah.
But it's one of
But
those where
this is true. Yeah.
you look at it and there's not a comp for him, right? There isn't a comp for an Ohtani.
No, there isn't. There isn't.
And to be fair to Ohtani, I mean, if there is a comp, I guess you could say it's Babe Ruth. I don't know.
Yeah, there are some similar numbers after so many games when you talk about pitching and you talk about hitting. There's like right now with the number of games that Ohtani's played, you match them up to Babe Ruth, and they're fairly similar. We actually looked at it. Rick Krajewski, our stat guy and researcher, he and I looked at it in spring training this year. And I said, I got these numbers. Can you double check these for me? Because you're the expert at research, but I find things sometimes and I ask him to double check it just to be sure and confirm it so that I don't throw it out in the air and it's wrong. And he gave me the number. He goes, yeah, these are right. He goes, I didn't realize this, but he goes, they're really similar to this time. But when it's all said and done, he's going to blow Babe Ruth away.
Yeah.
And that's amazing for anybody to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I was recently in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament, and I stopped by the Negro Leagues baseball museum.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're ever in Kansas City, go,
yeah.
Just go. Went to Arthur Bryant's right after, just down the road. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at even like those dudes, like some of the numbers that some of those guys had, and compare it to just everything. And the reason I did it was a part of the history thing, just because I'm a history nerd, but also just like you hear all this stuff about how people are just talking trash about that it's that everyone's just hyping up the Dodgers because it's the Dodgers and the evil empire. But then when you look at everything and you're just kind of like numbers wise, which is obviously kind of at baseball, the core is the numbers, right? The stats.
Mm-hmm.
I can't like I said, the reason I did the Babe Ruth thing is I did a little bit of digging and I didn't use any stats guys. I just kind of did the eye test. And for me, that's still astounding to really think about because since that time to now, granted different eras, all that stuff, you really haven't seen anything like that. You just haven't.
No, it's remarkable. Now we'll see how long he pitches in his career. But when he does, he's one of the best pitchers in the game.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I'm looking forward to seeing him do both this year with the Dodgers. But the hitting part, I got a note here I'll give this to you real quick. Since 2023, balls in play, 110 miles an hour plus. Shohei Ohtani, 115. Giancarlo Stanton, 104. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 103. Aaron Judge, 94. And Ronald Acuna Jr., 84. I mean, he's got – we always thought that Stanton hit the ball harder than anybody else. Ohtani does. And I've never seen a guy hit the ball as consistently hard as Ohtani. And it's unbelievable to watch. And it's a lot of hyperbole, and I'm building the guy up. But, again, if he played for another team, I'd be saying the same thing, but I'm lucky I get to see him all the time and watch him help this team win. And, he's in a good spot and I think he picked the best place for him and the Dodgers are really lucky to have him.
And Dodger fan is super lucky to have him too. I mean, again, Dodgers apologist at the end of the day and just lucky to be able to watch him. But again, check out my friend Tim Neverett on AM 570 calling Dodger games throughout the year. There's going to be some TV in there at some point as well too. And he's a great follow. Follow him. He's good people. Timmy, as always, thank you, and we'll catch you down the road.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you soon.